everybody, and we are joined today by a power thetan in the truest form, Mark Bunker. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here. It's great to be able to chat with you finally.
No, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you watching this, Mark and I have been trying to get together for probably about a year, if not more. But because of my own scheduling problems, it's not ended up happening until now. But I'm glad we're finally here. So thank you for taking the time.
Well, any time is a great time. So if it was a year in the making, that makes it even more delicious for folks who've been at the edge of their seats waiting for this to happen.
Well, yeah, now the pressure is on to deliver a really good stream.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. Well, look, I wanted to talk to you about safe pointing and Scientology's infiltration of government. For those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you will know I've been practically at war with East Grinstead Town Council because they are falling victim to Scientology's policy of safe pointing, which dictates no government bum ever acts on his own initiative. This is an L. Ron Hubbard quote. Governments are like prostitutes. They are used. And I've been trying to highlight this policy and how this is how Scientology operate for a very long time. And I thought a really good person to get on to talk about this would be the former Vice Mayor of Clearwater, Mark Bunker. So that's why you're here, to talk about what happens when you don't stand up to Scientology.
Well, first question I have is, what is this Scientology you're talking about? Oh, okay. I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to actually have been on the outside and then to be in City Hall and experience what it's like for everyone who's been dealing with this for decades.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so your story, you were assigned an anti-Scientology activist, I suppose, before you ran for office in Clearwater, right? What was your history in the anonymous movement and so on before you became a councillor?
Well, I've been helping Scientology or former Scientologists and people who are still in. I've been helping people who have been abused and defrauded by Scientology for 25 years now. And it just started with online video. I was one of the first people to actually put video online long before YouTube. And I thought that's one way I can help because I had some video editing equipment. So back in '98, I started doing that. And it just kept snowballing. So I joined with two major critics of Scientology back at the beginning. Well, it was 1999 when I first met Bob Minton, who was a retired millionaire who was actually fighting Scientology aggressively. And I was invited to come and join him in Clearwater to be part of a group called the Lisa McPherson Trust, named after a woman who was held captive here in Clearwater at the Fort Harrison Hotel, the Scientology Hotel, for the last 17 days of her life. And she lost 40 pounds during that time and died tragically. So I that's when I first moved to Clearwater, and I decided I would like to get involved more deeply. And I got to know the former mayor of Clearwater, Gabe Casares, when I was here. Gabe was the mayor when Scientology snuck into town back in 1975, and they ran all these covert actions to destroy Gabe. And, you know, it was inspirational getting to know him. He was a great guy. And I wish he were here today to continue to, it would have been great to have him as a resource when I was in office.
I think, and what an interesting turn of events as well. And again, this just shows how Scientology operates when it comes to critics and people it sees as hostile. You know, back then you had a Scientology that was going after the mayor and trying to destroy his career because he wasn't sympathetic to Scientology. Whereas now, if we fast forward to 2025, we have Scientology buttering up to the city council and doing everything they can to make them, you know, feel, you know, wanted and respected, and like Scientology are good agents, they're going to transform the area in order to get this certain project over the line. And it just goes to show how Scientology's only goal is to use the local government, and if you don't comply, they will turn against you and try and get you removed from office so that somebody can go into office that they can use, right?
Right. Back in 2017 here in Clearwater, the aquarium wanted to move downtown, which our downtown has been dead ever since Scientology came to town. No one wants to come downtown because of the presence of Scientology. So it's just littered with empty storefronts and a few random restaurants, but it's very difficult to get people to come down here. So the aquarium moving downtown would have been the biggest deal that would have helped re-innovate the entire downtown area. And Miscavige didn't want that. David Miscavige fought that big time and sabotaged the move down there. And then once the aquarium gave up and said, okay, besides suing the guy who was in charge of the aquarium and trying to destroy him, they also said, well, now that the aquarium's not there, we want that property that the aquarium was going to be on. And the aquarium, they owned the land, and not being terribly happy about how Scientology treated them in their project, they said, no, we're not selling it to you. We're going to sell it to the city, as the city wanted it as part of an expansion of our Bluffside Park to, bring people downtown. And when Scientology didn't get that property, then Miscavige said, all right, I'll wait until the next council comes along, because this council voted not to work with us. And I laid out, he laid out this entire plan of how Miscavige was going to revitalize the entire downtown, fixing up all the storefronts, recruiting businesses through some guy in Tampa whose job it is to recruit businesses. He would fill up every building, and he and Tom Cruise are going to build a movie theater and all of this. All we had to do as a city was give him that property that he wanted. And the city said, no, sorry. So he said, okay, I will wait till the next council and stop talking entirely to the city. And then the next council, I ran for office and I won. So he had to deal with me for 4 years. And then I did not get reelected. And the folks who took my place, very much in favor of Scientology and working with Scientology. So Miscavige waited it out. He got the council that he wanted and supported them terrifically during the race. And behind the scenes, Scientology may be buttering up officials, but they're waiting to stab you in the back. They're working overtime, doing every single thing they can to get their way, and they don't care about the city's needs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think if we look at East Grinstead Town Council as an example, from my interactions with them, it seems like councillors and mayors, past and present, who attend events at St. Hill, for example, their view, it tends to be, well, what's the harm in going to a Scientology event? Like, what's the harm in shaking their hand? We're not giving them property. We're not doing anything other than just, being friendly to them and representing them equally as a resident, as we represent everybody else. So what's the harm done? And my point is, well, the harm is you are enabling their plan to bring you under their control, and by shaking hands with them, you are making them feel like they have a good connection with the council, so that when somebody like me comes along and says, hey, this organization is harming and abusing people, and the government actually ruled, a high court judge in the UK ruled that Scientology is out to capture people, especially impressionable, young, vulnerable children. And you shouldn't be therefore, going to events at St. Hill. Scientology can say, oh, he's just an ex-Scientologist. You don't listen to him. He means nothing. So the counselors turn the other way because they are being influenced by that relationship that Scientology built.
Right. And that's the whole point of building that relationship. They want to use you. It's called safe pointing. And I'm sure you've pointed this out many times. It's to find who might have some sort of control in the area and, butter them up and make sure that they like you. Do everything you can to make them happy. If it's an organization like, the African American community here, we have one district, the North Greenwood district. Scientology came in and put a new roof on the Martin Luther King Jr. Building, their center there, which was nice of Scientology to do. But its basic point was to say, fight for us when we need you. So when I went to do a debate there, just saying the word Scientology got me booed down, silenced. And the moderator said, we're not going to talk at all about Scientology. And okay, but that's the point, make it so that you put the thought stomping technique in practice to, it's insidious. It's something that I'm sure a lot of organizations do, but to the degree that Scientology has it in writing and as a basic principle of doing business, as a politician, you should not be showing up at Scientology events. Not. I remember the mayor that I worked with during 3 of my 4 years. He quit in the middle of a meeting at one point. But Mayor Hibbard was not fond of Scientology. However, he wasn't in office at this time, I don't think, but he was invited to come and address some event at the Fort Harrison Hotel, Scientology's big building there. And they wrote a speech for him, and he read it. And I'm not reading this. And he wrote his own speech and gave it to them to put in the teleprompter. And then he was introduced. He stepped up to the mic, and Scientology had their own script still in the teleprompter. And he looked at it, and to his credit, he said, "Thank you." And he and his wife walked out without addressing the crowd. That's the type of thing that you really need to be aware of how they're using you and not stand for it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, like you said, that their interest is not in the local community. Their interest isn't in genuinely bettering local services and helping local residents. Like if we look at the IES event, International Association of Scientologists, it happens every year at St. Hill, and they always invite the mayor up on stage to give a check for £50,000 to local charities. And on the face of it, that seems great. Local charities, which are, obviously underfunded, they need every penny they can get to provide vital resources to the local community. There's nothing wrong with donating money to these groups. But the reason Scientology are doing it is because of PR reasons. They want you to think, oh, Scientology just gave £50,000 to the local air ambulance or the local rugby club or whatever. They're doing great things helping the community. No, what they're trying to do is buy your support and influence your decision making.
Right. It's a drop in the bucket to Scientology. They don't even have to think twice about, okay, I have some pocket change here. I'll just give you 50,000. And again, the entire point is safe pointing. Make them look like a charitable group when really they're not. And, so much of what they do is destructive, like the way they have damaged Clearwater's downtown. They had, I have this magazine here that was put out by Scientology And it came out the day after the local newspaper wrote this devastating story revealing that Scientology had secretly bought up virtually all the property downtown through LLCs, and they were leaving them sit empty. And that program started the moment that Miscavige said, all right, I'll wait for the next council. So now all the buildings downtown are owned by Scientology, and they have been sitting empty since 2017. And Miscavige again is saying, well, I can fix up the downtown for you. Let me at it. And now they're saying, okay, go ahead. And in fact, they just announced at this last meeting a few days ago that they're going to open up a great big L. Ron Hubbard Hall for events right downtown next to their Fort Harrison Hotel and the Flag Building. So they'll have a huge complex there for Scientologists. And the city is selling them a street to make it possible for them to do it. Actually, they don't even need the street. They want to own the street simply to keep people from protesting in front of it, in front of the hall. And, if it cost $1.3 million to buy the street to stop a protest, sure, we'll give you that.
It's nothing to Scientology. Like
Yeah.
all they have to do is phone up someone like Trish Duggan or one of the big wealthy Scientology donors and say, hey, look, we need $1.3 million to buy this street, and it's going to stop all these SPs from protesting outside this birthday event or whatever it may be. And they'll be like, yeah, no problem. I'll send it over later this afternoon. Like it's nothing to them, that amount of money for something like stopping a protest.
Yeah. And in order to pitch this project to the city council here, there's 4 council members and a mayor. All have the equal weight when they're voting. There's 5 votes to pass something. You need 3 votes to get it to pass. So here, because of sunshine laws, you cannot have 2 council members talking to each other on any topic. If somebody wants to pitch a program to you that they'd like to see approved, usually they'll come into City Hall and they'll meet us all one-on-one and say, here's what we plan to do. Here's what we'd like your support. So you have a chance to ask them questions and all of this stuff. Not with Miscavige. Miscavige orders people to come see him. And this time, all 5 of the folks went over to sit down with David Miscavige to personally see a video to show what the L. Ron Hubbard Hall is going to look like. And the council member who took over my seat, he was amazed by this beautiful video. If he said in the meeting, if only people could see this video. I don't know why Scientology doesn't want to show it. It's breathtaking. People would love it if they see this video. Well, the reason Miscavige isn't showing it to anyone in the public because it's an L. Ron Hubbard Hall. People will see that and they'll be furious. Now, Miscavige promised, in order to do some sort of land swap over the last couple of years, he promised that he would fix up 3 of the buildings downtown and renovate those. So there is a video online you can watch now at the ClevelandStreetAlliance.com. Beautiful video that's every bit as beautiful as the L. Ron Hubbard Hall is, I would imagine, that shows the painstaking effort they're taking to make this magnificent building for us. Now, are they going to put anything in it? We'll find out. But the point is, they put that online so you can look at it, and nowhere in that video does it say Scientology or David Miscavige has any connection to it, even though he's the guy controlling this and saying, let's get those buildings fixed. Mm-hmm. They created a front group so people wouldn't be upset. Oh, look, the Cleveland Street Alliance. Well, that sounds wonderful that people are coming together to fix up our downtown. And that's the difference between that video that they will show you and the one that says L. Ron Hubbard. And soon we're going to have, well, soon, it's going to be a number of years before they actually get it built. But there's going to be this gigantic hall with L. Ron Hubbard's name on it, right on the main road going down to Clearwater Beach, extremely popular beach, one of the most important tourist destinations in the country. And it's just another nail in the coffin of our downtown.
Mm.
And Miscavige now, I'm sorry for prattling on and on.
No, go for it.
Miscavige is again promising, okay, I'm going to revitalize downtown. Same promise he made in 2017. Never came through with it. He had everything he had in place. He had the properties. He had the money. They could have been working on this ever since then, but no. Slappy needed something. I'm sorry. Miscavige needed something that he wanted in exchange. So he waited till he got the council he wanted. But the point is, the council back in 2017, one of the things they said after talking to Miscavige is, if Miscavige does revitalize the entire downtown himself and put businesses in all these buildings, I don't think anyone will want to come down to Scientology's downtown. And they were right. That council is not sitting there now, but they're still right. This council doesn't see that people aren't coming downtown now because they're concerned about Scientology, and they don't want to put money in Scientology's pockets, even though it's hurting businesses who aren't run by Scientologists, that are just leasing space in a Scientology building, for example. But once the businesses that are open in Scientology properties, they know how much pressure Scientology puts on them. They know that they're living on month-to-month leases, that they can pretty much dictate the terms of what happens in those businesses. And what happens if Miscavige actually does put a business in every building and a business fails? Does he have to put another business in there and another and another? What if they all fail? What if Miscavige looks around and says, no one wants to come down here for some reason? Oh, well, let's tear down all these businesses. Let's put up expensive condos for wealthy Scientologists so they can live right here at Flag, and they can go walk across the street for their auditing and walk an extra block to the beautiful L. Ron Hubbard Hall. I think that's the ultimate game plan. Scientology wants to continue to control the downtown. For the past couple of decades, it's been just keeping people away from downtown and those prying eyes from seeing what David Miscavige might be doing down there. And now it's to absolutely just completely control it, and I think reshape it in his image.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a bit rich as well, given that Miscavige and Scientology are saying, hey, we will revitalize downtown. Trust us, we'll sort it. We'll get people back there. We'll drive, economic growth and all of this. When actually, if you look at it, the reason downtown Clearwater isn't thriving anymore is because of Scientology in the first place. If Scientology hadn't have established their big center there, which is like one of their international headquarters, the center for delivery, then people probably would, downtown wouldn't have suffered as much, right? It's because of them that there was a problem, and now they're providing the solution to the problem that they caused in the first place. It's just a bit rich, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Scientology would not be the problem that it is if Scientology wasn't behaving like, I don't know, Scientology. Those totalitarian view that L. Ron Hubbard had, where Scientology has to be in control of the planet. It's insanity, but they did not do themselves any favor in Clearwater by sneaking into town in 1975 under a fake name and then setting out to destroy our mayor, Gabe Casares at the time, and all of these plans to take over Clearwater, the complete takeover in Project Normandy was the name of the covert operation. That and so many other tens of thousands of documents from Scientology were uncovered a few years after Scientology came into town, when the FBI raided Scientology's headquarters in Washington, D.C. and L.A. and found this treasure trove of these written, detailed plans of not just taking over Clearwater, but having people get jobs in the FBI and the IRS. And for 2 years, they were stealing documents from there and bugging the IRS offices. So, I mean, the fact that they have a bad reputation, that comes straight from L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology.
Yeah.
And then they'll, when the top 10 people, including Hubbard's wife, go to prison, they say, well, we've gotten rid of all those bad people. Now we've reformed. Now we're good people. And then in 1995, Lisa McPherson's in the Fort Harrison Hotel. She's gone through a psychotic break. They hold her prisoner for 17 days till she dies and try to cover up that. And so people in town look at every action that Scientology has taken, and they've watched Going Clear. They've watched Leah Remini's show, Scientology in the Aftermath. They know how Scientology operates, and they're not happy about having it in their town. So it's, it's Scientology's own fault that they're in the pickle they're in, that people aren't really happy with them.
Yeah. And I think what's mind-boggling to me is the amount of evidence that exists that Scientology as an organization are bad actors, right? They have at their goal as one of their goals to infiltrate and influence local government, right? To bring about a Scientology world is the policy. That's what it says. It says that like I said earlier, no government bum ever acts on his own initiative. Governments are like prostitutes. They are used. The purpose of this safe pointing is to bring about a Scientology controlled government. And just look at, like you said, the way that Scientology established a center in Clearwater. They set up, for those of you who don't know, set up an organization, what's it called, United Churches of Florida or something, right? And bought all this property, and they didn't say they were Scientology. They just said they're a United Church group. So there was no opposition, because why would there be an opposition to a church group buying a building? But once they bought it, immediately they came out with, this is Scientology. And now suddenly, this, with these documents that were that were uncovered by an FBI raid, shows that no, the plan wasn't just to buy some property and have a base there. The plan was to control the government and actually rid Clearwater of its people. And this is the warning sign that I want to get across to East Grinstead town councillors. Clearwater is a couple of decades ahead of where East Grinstead is right now. And if they're not careful, this is what's going to happen to East Grinstead.
And let me point out another example of Scientology's lack of interest in what the city wants. When I was on the council, we approved an affordable housing project downtown. We felt it was incredibly important to revitalize downtown, that we need people living there. So we approved this project, and the city put in a lot of money to make this project happen. And then COVID hit. So we actually put in another couple $1 million of city funds to keep the project on track. And the developer was at work trying to get this complex built, except he was getting phone calls every single day from Scientology and visits from Scientology saying, we really want this property. We'll help you find another property somewhere else, but this property we want, and eventually derailed the project. The developer just threw up his hands and said, I'm out of here. And in the paper he said, Clearwater needs to decide what they want for their downtown. Well, we had decided, but Miscavige had other thoughts about it. And that's what dealing with Scientology is like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to do something? Miscavige goes, no. Well, I tell you what, let's do this instead. That favors Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
If there's going to be businesses downtown, let us own the buildings and let us control the people who try to do business down there, so we can shut them down if we want to. Like when the Lisa McPherson Trust opened right at the beginning of 2000. And a couple of doors down the street from us was a really nice Italian restaurant. And they were nice enough as we opened the doors to bring over a bottle of champagne and some bruschetta. And that was put in the newspaper, in the article. Oh, these folks came over and donated that. Miscavige said nobody eats at that restaurant and put a ban on it, and they went out of business. Really
simply
great
because
place.
they gave Clearwater City councillors free pizza or free bruschetta and a bottle of champagne.
They didn't. No, they didn't give it to the council. I'm sorry. They gave it to us who were working at the Lisa McPherson Trust.
Oh, the Lisa McPherson Trust. Sorry, right. So because they gave the Lisa McPherson Trust, who were nearby, some free food and a bottle of champagne, because of that, Miscavige was pissed off and he ordered Scientologists no longer go to this business, and they therefore had to shut down.
Yeah,
that's outrageous.
Absolutely. It is. And the pressure that is put on folks in Clearwater is just astonishing. You may not be seeing that in East Grinstead yet, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes that to influence the how everything is done.
Well, now, this is what, go on. Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay.
I was going to say, this is what I was going to ask, is like, what does that safe pointing look like? Because yes, Scientologists have had a center at St. Hill since 1959 when Hubbard bought the place. And back then, Hubbard was heavily involved in the council. I believe Scientology still go on about how he was the head of some traffic committee or something, which, in terms of actual power is probably nothing. It was probably just you can help volunteer managing the traffic in the area. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but they've been at it a long time. But we're in a position now where in East Grinstead, it seems like they view Scientology as fairly harmless, right? They get a couple of emails, councillors go for a tour around St. Hill. Scientology have offered volunteers to man local events. So, for example, if the council have a Christmas light switch on in the town, for example, Scientology's Office of Special Affairs will say, "Don't worry, we'll handle all the staffing for the event for you as on a voluntary basis." And the council kind of go, "Okay, well, what's the harm there? We have a local group offering support in the form of volunteers to man up our event." And it's kind of, they see it as very harmless, but over time you end up with a Scientology controlled government or local government organization. And like I said, Clearwater's a little bit ahead of East Grinstead, I think. What did it look like from a council perspective in terms of the effort Scientology will go to win over councillors? And do they wine and dine them, invite people out to fancy dinners and things? Or
not with me.
Obviously not with you, because you were on their radar beforehand, but I mean for other councillors, right?
No, I don't think that you'll see too many being wined and dined. I think the politicians here are wary of them, although new council members come on board who are willing to say, "Hey, look, things have been dead for 50 years down here. We have to do something different. Let's work with Scientology." Well, Scientology's just going to use you, and normally when you're working with Scientology, you may not even know it, because they'll put together front groups. Some of them are obvious that have been around for a long time, like the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. They're front group that attacks psychiatry. If the CCHR invites you to come speak at one of their events, I think a lot of people already know that that's Scientology, and they would steer clear of that. But here's a little example from 2000 when the Lisa McPherson Trust was open. Concerned citizens, this group in Clearwater, decided they wanted to beautify an alleyway downtown. Just happened to be an alley between two Scientology buildings where all the Sea Org members would come out on their smoke break and smoke out there. And that was the only use for it, really. But this group got together and they wanted to sell memorial bricks to create a lovely little park in that alleyway. And my friend Jeff Jacobson, who worked at the LMT with me, bought a brick that said, "Remember Lisa McPherson." And the group said, "No, we're not going to accept that brick." And the newspaper then did a story on it. And the ACLU said, "Well, yeah, that's blatant discrimination." And it caused such a ruckus that they had to go back and agree to allow the brick to be placed. And I went and videotaped the grand opening of this, and there was the mayor on stage with the folks in charge of it, and a great number of the people behind this group were Scientologists. And I have folks, I have like city council members and the chief of police standing right next to a major Scientologist in the town for the event. Safe pointing. And I think it's important to point this out. And then once the brick was actually there underneath a bench halfway down the park, still somebody came and defaced it immediately. And Jeff has had to replace that brick like 4 or 5 times now over the decades. And finally, the city said, "Okay, we're going to put it right, the first brick as you enter the park. It's right there." And they still defaced it. That's Scientology for you.
It's just petty, isn't it? It's petty. There's no other word for it.
It is. And, you know, Lisa was a devout Scientologist. Apparently, she wanted to leave. She had told some friends back in Texas that she's coming home. When she had this incident where they locked her in the hotel for 17 days. But the folks that I would meet on the street who were Scientologists, upset that we had a Lisa McPherson Foundation, they said, "Lisa was our friend." Well, I'm sure she was. So why didn't you help her, for one? Because they thought they were helping by following what L. Ron Hubbard told them to do in the case of a psychotic break. That's the problem. You know, it's the policies that Scientology has, not the people.
Yeah.
But the people who were friends of Lisa McPherson should want to remember her and should not be doing something as silly as defacing a brick. When I got elected to office, one of the first things that we did was open up a park here. And there was a plaque there in the park listing the names of the council people. And they had spray painted my name before the park even opened, just defacing it. The chief of police said, "I hate to break this to you, but they did this." So,
wow,
it's just insanity.
Yeah, for sure. What's it been like? So, for example, let me give you an example in the UK, right? So, Saint Hill is down. You've been to Saint Hill, haven't you? In fact, you sent me a video, which we'll play in a second. But Saint Hill's down this country lane. It's not actually in the town of East Grinstead. It's kind of, you know, just on the outskirts. And there's a couple of other businesses in the area. So there's the rugby club directly opposite, and there's a sports center, which is their immediate next door neighbor just up the road. And these are both charities. They're both local organizations, a rugby club and a sports club. Fantastic. And they do great work. And Scientology donated money to these groups at the latest IES event. Now, why would they do such a thing? It's not because they genuinely want these groups to thrive. It's because Scientology have applied for a PSPO, Public Spaces Protection Order, which the council are currently deciding on, which essentially, if it goes through, will be a ban on protesting outside St. Hill. It will make it illegal to protest on St. Hill Road. And in order for that to go through, they need to demonstrate a clear, persistent, ongoing disruption to the local community as a result of protesting. There's been 2 protests in the last 6 years. I don't know how they're going to prove it, other than by trying to get lots of people in the local area to write in to say these protests have disrupted my life. And so what they're trying to do is win over the local businesses like the rugby club and the sports club to try and get them to argue their case for them so that the protest gets banned, even though our protest has 0 impact on business at the rugby club and the sports club. And things like the traffic issue on the road during the event is not caused by protesters. It's caused by the thousands of cars trying to get onto the St. Hill property and their poor traffic management, rather than us as protesters. But nonetheless, they're trying to influence other groups so that they can apply pressure on the council. Have they been doing a similar thing in Clearwater from your experience?
Well, yeah. Here in Clearwater, they're right in the heart of our downtown. So it's much different than, being down that road and far away. But let me suggest, if you haven't already, make sure that each of the politicians in East Grinstead watch a video called Jeff Stone's Changing Story. This was in Riverside County here, which is halfway between LA and San Diego in California. And Jeff Stone was the head of the County Board of Supervisors. Scientology came to him and said, we want to stop the protests out at the Golden Era Studios. This is Scientology's hidden desert compound, essentially. This is
I was just going to say, this is a really good comparison, actually, because I went to Gold last year when I visited LA. And Gold, even though the purpose of Gold is very different to the purpose of St. Hill, it's a perfect example of like this secluded base that's a kind of out in the sticks, that's in the middle of nowhere. It's a really good comparison you're drawing here. But sorry, carry on.
No, but the whole point is they fought hard. Scientology fought hard to stop any protests out there. And Jeff Stone worked with Scientology's attorney to draft this proposal to keep people, I think it was like 300 feet away from any home. So protests throughout the county would be affected. And critics and other people in the area who had no interest at all in protesting Scientology, but for instance, the Jeff Stone, who actually was pushing this for Scientology, he joined some of them protesting when a child molester was living in the neighborhood. And so locals would be saying to him, you're going to stop those protests from going on as well. But you can watch in the video, and I appeared at several of the meetings to join the folks in explaining how Scientology is using him. And every time we had a meeting, Jeff Stone kept changing what was reality. Now we have a president who does that on a second by second basis. But I mean, it was astonishing to see the efforts they went to try to stop protesting. And after like 6 months, they failed. And the council finally said, or the Board of Supervisors rather said, all right, you can picket out there. So those of us who were at that meeting where they said, okay, you can picket freely, we went to picket immediately, and I got arrested. So,
Jeez.
But happily, because I wanted to show that they arrested somebody else, and I wanted to show how insane this is.
And the reason you got arrested was not because you did anything illegal; it's because they have a restraining order out against you. Is that right?
Well, no, there was no restraining order at that point.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, this was long before that. But and that only applied in Clearwater, not in Riverside County. The reason I got arrested, though, was because it was I found out after they they, put me in handcuffs and had me sitting there at the police station for an hour or so. They said, you can go. They told me it was a citizen's arrest. The Scientology official PR woman, who was the one, really pushing for this law to go in effect, she said, arrest that man, arrest him. And
for what though? For
then
harassing people or something, or just?
Yeah, well, I mean, the theory was that I was blocking traffic coming in and out. Now, this is a place that has a gigantic entrance both in and out, and you can see on the video as I'm being handcuffed, there is so much room to drive trucks through there, buses.
This is
not blocking
hilarious.
anything.
This is hilarious because it's identical to the claims they make at St. Hill, right? When they call the police and they say these protests are, they say we're standing in the road, we're blocking traffic, and the police show up and they're like, nobody's blocking any traffic here. The reason there's traffic is because you've got poor traffic management and you're not letting people into the car park. Like the protesters are absolutely fortunately, the police so far at protests outside St. Hill have been very understanding and they've been watching the whole thing. And I've met with them prior to the protest and explained our concerns and said, hey, you are going to get lots of calls from Scientology saying we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. I can assure you we won't be doing those things. I know you have to respond, and the police will always have a presence at these protests, but by briefing them beforehand, they're aware of the games that they're going to be playing. And it's hilarious to me that on the other side of the world, in an American state, we have exactly the same claims being made, and again they're just completely false, because these protests are peaceful and they're genuine concerns that we have.
They constantly call the police to, well, you mentioned the injunction back in 2000 when I was working at the Lisa McPherson Trust. The man who financed it, Bob Minton, got into a little scuffle where somebody was in his face. Scientologist security guy had a camera in his face, and Bob was trying to talk on the phone and kind of pushed him away with his sign like this, and the guy spun around, fell on the ground, and all these Scientologists ran out of the Fort Harrison Hotel and just stood over him silently, because in Scientology terms, when you're in pain or unconscious and you hear some random thing, it could implant a really negative thing in your mind that will cause you to go nuts and slaughter a town
and
years later.
It can be re-stimulated as well, right? So if you cut yourself and someone goes, oh, are you okay? Next time someone says, are you okay? In that same voice or the same tone or whatever, it's going to trigger your mind and suddenly you'll start feeling pain again. It's complete bogus. There's no science behind it, but that's their belief. So that's why they were silent. Yeah.
So that little incident caused Bob to get arrested, and then the judge put a restraining order, or he put this together where we had to stay 10 feet away from Scientologists. They were supposed to stay 20 feet away from us, and it was bogus. There's never any real problem. Never any danger, but Scientology continued to use it decades later. When I moved back in the town in 2013, they tried to have me evicted from the condo I was renting because I was living right next door to a Scientologist. And they wrote the condo board and said, you've got to kick him out of here. He's breaking this injunction. And the condo president said, we did a background check. He's fine. I had to go to the police with my attorney to sit down and kind of negotiate to say, oh, yeah, okay, Mark, you can stay there. They're not going to try to have you evicted again. And if you happen to be standing in a grocery line and there's a Scientologist there, they won't call the police. And, oh, well, God bless you. That's awfully nice of you, Scientology. It's insane, but they will use anything they can to try to stop any type of protest, even when there's no protest going on. It's like, oh, we don't want them near. For God's sakes, it's insane. But that's L. Ron Hubbard for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I want to play this video actually that you sent me. This is a really interesting one. It's only like 2 minutes long. I'll bring it up on the screen because when we were talking about East Grinstead and these concerns that people have about Scientology and their presence, and when I'm trying to educate counselors and say, hey, look, give us a meeting, sit with us for an hour. You go to events at St. Hill every year. Why won't you give us as protesters 1 hour of your time so that we can explain these things to you? That's what we're asking for, because it's really important they understand that if they don't do something now, if they don't review their relationship with Scientology, it's only going to get worse and they'll end up like Clearwater has. And I wanted to show this video because it's an example of how concerns in the local town about Scientology are nothing new. They have existed for a very long time. It's just we now have a very pro-Scientology local government, which we perhaps haven't had in the past. Current East Grinstead Town Council are more than happy to censor meeting minutes and take out any mention of Scientology when we ask questions at public meetings, that sort of thing. Did you want to say something before I share the screen?
Oh, there was something that I wanted to say. Now it slipped my mind. I'll think of it while we're watching the video again.
Probably because I was rambling too much. Sorry. So here's the video. An East Grinstead taxi. This is on your channel, right? It's unlisted.
Yes.
At the moment, but Taxi Cab Confessions, Scientology edition.
I shot this in 2008.
Okay.
It's a lovely, lovely old town. There's a lot of history, East Grinstead. I run Scientologists around all over the town because I work for a local cab company, and I realised after 2 or 3 years that there was something odd about these people, and I couldn't put my finger on it. They seem to have a lack of emotion, compassion, empathy. There was just no personality there. There was nothing there. So I decided to go on the internet to find out more about Scientology and what it stands for and what it represents. And what I found was that basically it's a corrupt, money-making, vicious cult. And although they say they are a religion, nothing could be further from the truth. It is a cult, and they stop at nothing to subtract money out of its poor, deluded people that it entices into their organization. And it was then that I came upon Anonymous on the internet and decided, well, this is what needs to be done. People of East Grinstead need to be told about Scientology and what's going on in St. Hill, because I'm sure that the population of East Grinstead, although they are aware of Scientology, that they're not fully up to speed in what goes on at St. Hill. And I think this is a good way of getting through to the people of East Grinstead to say, look, this is what's happening in our beautiful town.
So what do you do to educate people?
Well, I have leaflets that I stick on various windows that belong to Scientology. There's shops and various organizations. They own some shops here called G&G Food, which are they give out these pills,
vitamins,
sort of, are non-medical, if you like.
It's a vitamin shop.
And if I get through to one person, something I've had a success, and I think I have got one. That's but it's I feel so strongly about it that people should be aware of what's going on in these schools, and they are not aware. They just go along with their business and say, well, it doesn't harm me, it doesn't bother me. But it's time they sat up and realise what's actually going on in St. Hill.
I think that's such a really well put together video, because that is still the response I get from people I speak to in East Grinstead, is that the majority of them know Scientology have a base there and it's this wacky American cult, but they're not truly aware of what's actually going on, the abuse that is happening, the human trafficking, the hard manual labor punishments. These are the things actually happening at St. Hill they just don't even know about.
Yeah, and I was so impressed by this guy who, we just got in his cab to, go over to St. Hill. And he wanted to share stories with us, and he allowed me to videotape our conversation. It's amazing. He gives free rides to Scientologists if they want to get out of there. He'll help them escape. And that is incredibly heartening to hear. And I remembered what I wanted to say beforehand about, why the politicians there aren't willing to sit down with you for an hour. It's easier for them to continue to accept Scientology's money. It's easier for them to continue to go to lavish events and meet Tom Cruise or whatever other Scientology celebrities are there, hobnobbing with them. And believe me, that's not an accident that they're meeting with celebrities. Here in the Tampa area, there was a woman who was elected, I believe it was mayor of, I'm not sure if it was Tampa or another city. This happened a number of years ago. Suddenly there was a knock at her door, and it was Tom Cruise. Just wanting to say hello and bring her one of his famous cakes, I guess. He has some coconut cake that he sends to everybody on Christmas time. And he came in and chatted with her about how wonderful the area is. And hey, Scientology is really terrific. And then she invited him to a party. And so Tom Cruise shows up at her party with her friends. Yeah, that's part of safe pointing. And, I'd be happy to meet with Tom Cruise. He's not knocking on my door.
No, but this is the thing. He's used as a tool in their toolkit, right? We're going to see this in May. It's the Mission Impossible Final Reckoning premiere is happening in May in London at Leicester Square. Now, last year there was a film premiere, and the mayor and all former mayors in East Grinstead were invited to attend the red carpet premiere. And the mayor at the time took a picture with Tom Cruise and put it on his blog about how wonderful it was he got to meet Tom Cruise. And we're going to see that again in the next month or so. These councillors and these mayors, or the mayor of East Grinstead, is going to be given an invitation to attend the Mission Impossible premiere. And on the face of it, yeah, what's the harm done going to a fancy film premiere? It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, meeting Tom Cruise, fantastic. But the harm is actually under the surface, right? Because the reason you're being invited is because Scientology are trying to influence you and assert control over you. Now, counselors might be looking at this thinking, well, going to a red carpet premiere and meeting Tom Cruise doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to back down to Scientology and do whatever they say. But it's so much more sort of underground than that, right? There's so much more I don't know quite what the word is for it. It's not a good thing. They're doing it with undue influence in mind.
Here's what they can do, and they should do. Go to the grand opening, the red carpet event, get a picture with Tom Cruise, and then sit down with the critics and stop this nonsense about preventing any protests outside St. Hill. Show that you can't be corrupted. Let them try. Let them schmooze you. I know you don't want to give up all the perks. You don't want to, stand up there on stage and have your picture taken with a giant check. Go ahead and do that and vote against them and see how often you get invited. Hopefully, they'll continue to still shower you with praise and affection if you still vote against them. We'll see.
Or here's a better idea: meet with Tom Cruise and get a picture of him as you tell him or ask him what he thinks about disconnection or the protests that are going on or the abuse and the human trafficking happening at St. Hill. Maybe get a picture of his reaction when you say, I'm the mayor of East Grinstead. What do you think? Because we've got some concerns here about this human trafficking. And apparently a lot of your staff are actually Scientology Sea Org members who have signed $1 billion contracts to dedicate their life to Scientology and are getting paid $50 a week. And they're working for you. Is that true? I'd love to see his reaction to that. Yeah. Although I doubt it will happen, but
no.
We can hope.
They'd be whisked away immediately.
Yeah. But exactly, I think you bring up a really good point. Is like there's nothing wrong with accepting these gifts and being, obviously if you declare it, you have to declare all these gifts that you get if you're a politician. There's nothing wrong with listening to Scientology, but the problem is you're not listening to the other side, and you need to be fair as a counselor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair and understand that you are being used.
Yeah.
You know,
Precisely.
that's the written policy.
Yeah. John Blues here actually said subtle and insidious. That's such a good 2 words for it. And that's the words I was thinking of earlier. Should we have a look at some of these questions and comments I've been starring as we've been going through?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Michelle's in the house. Thank you so much for the super chat. Michelle says, small victories. I talked a restaurant owner out of displaying a stack of free personality test brochures. He'd never heard of Scientology and he threw them away when I gave him the overview. Yeah. Well done, firstly. And again, this is the thing. If you were a Christian church, right, a real religious group, and you wanted to hand out free Bibles or, you know, free leaflets about your course, most people would go into this business and say, hey, I'm from the local so-and-so church. Would you mind if we put these flyers on your counter? And the business owner will say yes or no. Scientology don't do that. They say, oh, it's just a personality test. It's nothing to do with religion. We're not Scientologists. Why are they lying? They're not being open and honest. This is the type of group that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, go on.
No.
Okay.
I was just going to point out something absolutely unnecessary. During COVID, David Miscavige got worldwide scorn when he went on stage and said that COVID was a hoax, essentially, planetary bull bait, and this is nonsense. That got so much press internationally that he had to turn around and become the most important figure in stopping the spread of COVID. And so they had teams of Scientologists going out to spray down offices for people for free. And every store you went to here in Clearwater and around the world, essentially, had all these free booklets about COVID safety and
live well and stay happy, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and it was at the back, it's promotion for Scientology. Now, did Miscavige really believe that? No, but he was trying to overcome that horrible press to say, "Oh, we're the heroes here."
And the people of East Grinstead may not be aware that that was the case, right? So, for example, the local member of Parliament, Mims Davies, the MP for East Grinstead, actually awarded Scientology with I can't remember the name of it, but it was something like a Mid Sussex Award, or some sort of commendation for the community effort and work Scientology had been doing in the local area during the pandemic, right? By delivering groceries for elderly people and spreading awareness about, the keep 2 meters apart and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, on the face of it, there's nothing wrong with helping old people get their groceries when, there's a pandemic happening. But again, the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to reverse the press image that that you just explained David Miscavige got for saying the whole thing was a hoax. It's like, the reason is PR focused. It's not because they actually care about the community. They just want the award.
Yeah. And the individuals who are actually doing this, helping people and show up at fires and things, they really are there to try to help, even though oftentimes they're doing things that are destructive. Like at 9/11, Scientologists were there gleefully writing online that, oh, there were psychiatrists here, we chased them away. That was the real goal, and to get PR. But when somebody's taking a bottled water to a firefighter or something like that, they mean that, and it's good that they do that. But the most important thing to Scientology, when you report back after having done that, is, was there any press there? Did we get any press? Is there anything in the paper? Anything on TV? That's the real concern of the management of Miscavige.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they invite the mayor onto the stage to accept the check, because they want a photo and they want to say the mayor of East Grinstead came to our event, and it lends a sense of credibility to this organization.
Absolutely. That they're just using you that way. Plain and simple. That's their policy. If you had the joyful pleasure of ever attending the L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition in Los Angeles, California. It's a Disneyland of lies. Where it's a fabulous fun. I went to it before they knew who I was, way back in 1999. Apparently, it's still the same. At the end of this tour, you enter a room where suddenly the walls part, gigantic wall with all these awards from various cities, states, the president of the United States. I think President Clinton actually gave them a commendation. All these plaques and awards are on the wall to show, look how respected we are. Scientology is loved by everybody. Let me give you an example of one thing they did in Clearwater that I called out back in like 2000, 2001. The city council then issued a proclamation about a school, a local school. The Concerned Businessmen of America told them that they had done a survey all across the country. They discovered one of the best schools in the country was right there in Clearwater. And they would love a proclamation to extol how great they are. To help out the council, they actually wrote the proclamation themselves and said, here's a copy of it. And if when you do this, would you mind sending us, I think it was 3 copies, one for the school, one for our office, and one for the files. What they didn't say is the Concerned Businessmen of America is a Scientology front group, lying to the council to get one of those proclamations that they can put on display so that when people would come to the school, they can say, look, the mayor loves us. The council in the city, they think we're one of the best schools around. You should bring your kid here. That's the point. Using you, exploiting you, safe pointing them with your, whatever quality that you have that they feel they can steal from you.
Yeah.
It's insidious.
That's the only word for it. And that's all they want, is they want you to turn a blind eye. They want you to not do the research. And so far in East Grinstead, we've seen these councillors going to events and supporting Scientology in various ways and not realizing the impact that has on survivors of abuse who are trying to stand up and say, hey guys, you need to be aware that this is an organization that harms people. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to this person. We're trying to have our voices heard. And by going to events at St. Hill, all you are doing is giving them more legitimacy than they deserve. And that in turn makes it harder for our voices to be heard. So yeah, on the face of it, it may not do any harm going to an event, but you have to see the bigger picture. And that's all we're asking for with councillors in East Grinstead. So let's go through some of the comments, because I know we're over an hour and I wanted to try and keep this to about an hour. Bok Buddy, Alex, your work has proven East Grinstead is a how-to on safe pointing. Deleting even the name Scientology from the audio of council meeting videos is unbelievable. Yeah. Did that ever happen in Clearwater, Mark?
No, although I have to say that in our council minutes, I discovered that they often left out what I was saying about Scientology in my closing comments. I'd have some really lovely expose on what Miscavige had done, and it would be boiled down to, and Mark Bunkers showed some concern about about some issue,
about some local issue.
Yeah. And my feeling was, the city may not do anything about this, but let's at least put it on the record. They have not gone back and erased the video and audio of my comments, so those are still available for the public. And,
well, you've got one up on me there, then, Mark, because every time I or any of this community of ex-Scientologists and local residents who are trying to have their voices heard mention Scientology, it is literally bleeped out in the video recording.
And let me say, that is shameful.
Mhm.
And the counselors there should be ashamed of doing that.
Mhm.
What the hell is wrong with you? Come on. You don't have to help the protesters, but you should not hinder somebody who's trying to share some important information to warn people. Listen, if you want to get into Scientology, it's there for you. But look before you leap. There's plenty of information on the net. Check it out. Listen to the stories of folks who have been abused. Listen to how they actually operate. But to shut down something like that by the council, that is shameful.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Joe here. We love Wise Beard Man. Yes, we do. Absolutely. SP Crusader Leany is here saying good evening, everyone. Oh, these are all from the beginning. Hans Christian Schwartz saying good evening. Thank you so much. Leany here says, question Mark, from what you've witnessed, what do you think is the best way to deal with this?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, the things that we've been talking about today, don't buy into it. If you're a politician and Scientology is schmoozing you, just be aware of what's really happening. You don't have to give in to whatever Scientology wants you to do. You don't have to be used for photo op. If you want to meet Tom Cruise, go ahead and meet him, and then feel free to vote against Scientology when you should.
Exactly. I don't have any problem with councillors and mayors going to St. Hill events if they are informed about the reason they have been invited. The problem we have in East Grinstead is that councillors are going to Scientology events, using Scientology volunteers at council events. They are heavily entwined with this organization. In fact, some councillors and former mayors even feature in a video on Scientology's website where they're talking about the wonderful close relationship the council has with Scientology, right? That is the problem, when you're also at the same time refusing to even meet with victims of abuse inside Scientology. Be fair about it. That's what we're asking.
Man, and that, I'm sorry, that is disgusting. Any politician who did that here would be run out of town. Because the people of Clearwater have known what this organization is, who has been, hurting our city for, since 1975. To be in one of their videos and promote them.
There's a video of former Mayor Rex Whitaker wearing his mayoral chain. He's now at Mid Sussex District Council, which is like the next level up. There's a video of him wearing his chain, shaking hands with Miscavige at St. Hill. This video is the St. Hill documentary on Scientology TV. And fortunately, Rex Whitaker, he was on the board not the board, but the cabinet, what's it called? The panel, the scrutiny committee meeting that was reviewing whether to ban protesting for the PSPO. And I was really concerned, like, this guy has a say in whether to ban protesting. But fortunately, at the beginning of the meeting, he declared a pecuniary interest and he said, I'm going to take myself out of this decision-making process because I've been to events at St. Hill, which I thought was a very wise thing for him to do. And I respect him for that. But what he really should do is ask Scientology to take down the video of him shaking Miscavige's hand because that's doing more damage to him. They'll never take it down.
That'll never happen.
Gamer Jackie says, hello there, Mr. Bunker. Wise Beard Man, our American treasure, lol. Also, hello, Alex. Hello, thank you. Deanna Ross is here, catching up. Hi, everyone. Lamp says, one thing Scientology has always been good at is leveraging capitalism and its favor. There we go. Danielle Chamberlain says, question Mark, do you get a chance to one-on-ones with individual counselors, and what do they personally think of Miscavige? Great question.
Well, if you're asking when I was on the council, we could not talk about Scientology separately. among anything that would come up for a vote. We weren't allowed to talk about it all. So now I have not sat down to meet with the new members of the council, but I did get to know them over the course of the campaign. And I have nothing against the two new members. Mike Menino ran against me in 2020 rather, and lost that race. He ran again now for the other seat, and he won that one. Ryan Cotton is in my seat now. And we'd see each other at events where we all had to get up and answer questions from the crowd. So we could get a sense of what everyone thought. And there's nobody on the campaign trail who thought, well, I wonder where Mark sits on Scientology. Huh? But it was clear that, Ryan said throughout the entire campaign, they're a fine organization. We have to work with everybody. We should just accept that they're a religion and get on with it. That's the easy thing to do, for sure. It certainly didn't hurt that he had an enormous amount of money and power behind him. This entire slate of Republicans had a big, huge push to get them in office, and all three of those candidates won. But no, they're not. They're not going to sit down and meet with me because they know. They get when I just go and speak in front of them. That's 3 minutes that they don't really care to hear. So for me to sit down individually with them wouldn't get anywhere.
And this is the thing. Scientology has created this siloed view among counselors. Like, they just don't want to know. They don't want to speak to you. Same in East Grinstead. They don't want to talk to us because Scientology is feeding them information in their ear saying, oh, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to. And even though I know it's different in Clearwater because you're not allowed to discuss things outside of it, but even now you're not on the council anymore, they still don't want to hear what you've got to say because they've been fed all this information in the background from Scientology about how you should probably not be listened to.
Well, I don't know if it's so much that. I just think they don't really care. I mean, it's not an issue for them.
But it should be, and that's the point.
Should be.
It should be.
Absolutely should be.
About.
It's something that every person, just basically every person in Clearwater cares about. You knock on the door when you're campaigning, the first thing they ask is, what are you going to do about Scientology?
Nice.
So
that's where we need to get to in East Grinstead. There are a lot of people that are concerned about Scientology that do voice their concerns to me, but a lot of people just aren't even aware of what's going on at St. Hill. I think it's just because it is that one step further removed as it is in Clearwater, where they're right in the center of town. So I think it's not as apparent to residents, but we're working on it anyway. Rachel Harris, question, Alex, with the way Scientology is safe pointing the East Grinstead Council, could you not safe point a councillor yourself and make sure they also have your message? Well, look, I have connections with different politicians at various different levels, and the majority of my work as an activist isn't here on YouTube. It's actually going to meetings with various politicians, members of parliament, and trying to champion that message, and requesting a meeting with even the clerk at East Grinstead Town Council, basically the CEO of the organization, not an elected official, but the person that runs the whole show. Even requesting that meeting fell short. They don't want anything to do with me, and it's ridiculous when you consider the amount of support this movement has and the concern that exists about Scientology. When you spend so much time going to Scientology events, you need just give us 1 hour of your time. That's all I'm asking for. But I'm trying my best, Rachel. Daniel Chamberlain, comment, they act so entitled, arrogant, and insidiously. Yeah, absolutely. And continued here, the council don't seem to take on board the triggering of past trauma at the hands of Scientology each and every time the councillors attend Scientology events and accept money. You just said you couldn't have any conversations with other councillors in Clearwater about Scientology. So I guess that meant there was no discussion when people spoke at council meetings, right? Was it just you listened to what they had to say and that was it?
Well, at council meetings, that's the only time you can talk on an issue, whether it's Scientology or, are we going to spend money on the park? Anything that's going to be before us, you can only talk in front of the public at a meeting. So there, people were willing to freely discuss. Although I have to say that I was the first person on the council to actually change the way we spoke about Scientology by being open about how they're screwing over the city, how they're going behind our backs to ruin this affordable housing project, to be very upfront about what's going on. If it were up to the rest of the council, it's something that we have to deal with, but no, come on, get some balls, do something about it.
Yeah.
It's insane. I've tried to show since 1998 that it's okay to say the word Scientology and stand up to them. I'm still standing. I got elected to office. It's not the end of the world if Scientology goes boo. You just don't be afraid.
Yeah, and their policy is to threaten to sue, not to actually sue. So when Scientology say to East Grinstead Town Council, if you don't redact that from the council minutes, we will sue you into oblivion because it's an accusation about Scientology that is unfounded and untrue about abuse or whatever it may be, don't stand for it, because they won't actually sue you. The policy is to threaten to sue. The point is, if someone speaks at a council meeting, it's because they want to get it on the public record, and it's a valid question. Why do you think it's appropriate to attend events at St. Hill when there are numerous allegations of abuse that exist at that organization? There's nothing accusatory about that question. It's a valid question. Don't redact it from the meeting minutes and from the recording just because Scientology threatened to sue you. It's a very good point you just made.
Well, it's also an excuse. You can say, well, if Scientology is going to sue us, so we better remove it, when they don't want to look bad.
Yeah, but it just makes them look worse by redacting the minutes.
Sure.
Oh, anyway, Deanna Ross here. Question: do you think protesting city council would put more pressure on the city?
Well, it definitely it helps to get your voice heard. Draw more attention to it. Maybe some press will come and do a story on the fact that people are protesting the city council. Any publicity you can get in the press or radio shows or whatever, where you can bring up the fact that this is going on, that the council feels that it's necessary to do Scientology's bidding after, schmoozing with Tom Cruise and getting up on a stage at an event and waving to everybody. Embarrass them. Come on, just call them out on that and make sure that the press notes it, because the only way to change people's behavior is to shame them. Mm. And you need the press for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the press is something I've been working very hard on in the UK. The Daily Mail did a double-page spread expose on the close relationship East Grinstead Town Council have with Scientology, and published the picture of the mayor with Tom Cruise. And it was the talk of town for a couple of weeks. It certainly put things on their radar. And as much as we are still fighting the challenge of the close relationship, there definitely has been a notable shift in the council's attitude towards this issue. They still won't meet with us, but they have gone to less Scientology events over the last year since that article was published. They're still going to events. The mayor still turned on their Christmas lights, but it did get it on their radar because it shows there's public concern here. It's not just one guy on YouTube that's worried about this. It's a national issue of importance.
Scientology can turn on their own Christmas lights. You don't need to be there to help them.
They could just use their OT powers.
Yeah.
Just postulate they'll turn on.
or just reach down and plug it in, whatever. You don't need the council's help for that.
Very true. Bo Beats here. Question: have either of you heard if Scientology plans on opening an org in Winnipeg in Canada? As I heard, they have been purchasing property here. I don't know about that. I don't know if you do, Mark.
Nope. I know nothing about it. They can purchase property and sit on it for years and years and years before they actually open it.
It's certainly possible. That's what they did, or they're doing in Manchester, in Sunderland, Newcastle, Plymouth, these places, all in the UK. Scientology purchased buildings 14 or 16 years ago, and they've just sat there empty, waiting renovation. So it's very possible they're buying property in Winnipeg. I don't expect an ideal org is going to open there anytime soon.
So I was reading some articles that were in the Tampa Bay Times about the L. Ron Hubbard Hall. Scientology first announced they were going to build this hall in 1993. They finally got around to filing some papers with the city to get the ball rolling in 2018, but they never followed through with getting the paperwork that our city departments needed. So that just kind of sat there. So now we're to the point whereby they have to have it constructed by 2033, essentially. The city wants it done by 2029. They're going to let them pay $300,000 a year each year back to 2033. But from 1993 to 2033, I know it's a span of time. Scientology's time frame is completely different from those of us in the real world. But they have billions in the bank that they have to put into something, and real estate is the safest thing. Buy a building, we'll sell it eventually. But they have to show that they're doing something with the parishioners' money.
Yeah, and for them, because they will buy the building, but then they will raise money from parishioners to effectively buy the building, even though they have the money. All of the parishioners have to pay for it. So they'll purchase the building, but then the local organization will have to buy the building or rent it from the management organization. So they have to raise all this money again. And this is one of the reasons they don't open the building as renovated, or renovate or open the building, because they haven't raised enough money. They have the money in the bank. They just don't have the money set aside for this specific project. And so for them, if they have to pay $300,000 a week or a month or whatever in fines because they've not opened it yet, that's nothing for them because they've got it in the bank. But I don't know if you know this, Mark. At the LRH birthday event that happened literally just last week or the week before, David Miscavige formally announced L. Ron Hubbard Hall as something that's now finally happening. There were big flashy graphics and videos and stuff, and it's been on Scientology's radar, but the fact that it's been announced an international event means that it's now suddenly a priority to be opened fairly soon. I would imagine they're going to put a lot of resource into getting it built.
Yeah, probably. And it's a further stake in the heart of our downtown.
Linda P. Golan here. Question. So where are they going to hide David Miscavige at the BFI tribute to Tom Cruise? Can't imagine he won't be there. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that Miscavige will be here for I don't know if you're aware, but Tom Cruise just got awarded a fellowship at the British Film Institute. There's going to be a big event. I don't think Miscavige will come to it, but I'll be there. So I'll keep an eye out for him.
Yeah, he doesn't like showing his face in public. I don't know if it's the same for him overseas as it is here in the States, but he's incredibly worried about somebody handing him a subpoena here. Yeah. So that's why he doesn't come to City Hall, and Scientologists the city people have to go to see him over at his office.
And the same at St. Hill, right? People, they want to expose counsellors to Scientology. So even though Miscavige isn't here, you know, counsellors are expected to come to St. Hill because they want to be wined and dined, given a tour. They want these counsellors to think, oh, this is a wonderful place. Look what great work you've done restoring this, you know, manor house. And, you know, it also gives Scientology an opportunity to grab some CCTV footage of you at their property, which they can use at a later date to smear your name if they want to. But ultimately, it's, you know, it's that arrogance. It's no, you come to us. We're not going to come to you. Educon here, question: are there other local councils that are likely to have been influenced? Let me start that again. Are there other local councils that are likely to have been influenced in a similar fashion to Clearwater and East Grinstead? I would say any council that has a Scientology organization right nearby.
Yeah. Yeah. If Scientology's in your town, they'll schmooze you.
Yeah. It's just whether or not they've been successful in that attempt is what's up for debate.
I mean, these are two major locations for them. So yeah, they're going to pull out all the stops here to do everything they can. Safe point. If you've got a small org in some smaller city that's not a real hub, they'll still try to get good press and still try to, you know, weasel everything they can out of the local city council. But it's not the same as St. Hill or Clearwater.
No, but they're still going to try, aren't they?
Sure.
Final one here, because I know we're massively over. Thank you so much, Mark. Sue Denham says, Mr. Mark Bunker, sir, just want to say appreciate you. And I certainly echo that as well. We massively appreciate your work in this field and your dedication over the last few years, Mark.
Well, thank you. And I'm in awe of everything you're doing over there. So keep it up.
Thank you. And I want to show your channel here for those of you who aren't subscribed. I doubt anyone is subscribed to me but isn't subscribed to you, because you are an OG that have been doing this for far longer than I have. But just on the off chance you're watching this and you're not subscribed to Mark Bunker's channel, please go and subscribe to Xenu TV. I will put the link in the description down below. Thank you so much, Mark, for your time and for talking to me about this and for your work over the last couple of decades. It's paved the way for people like me to speak out and do what I'm doing. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
And we'll catch up very soon. Thank you so much for everyone that watched this. Leave a comment down below and let us know what you think. And we'll see you on the next one.